All right, imagine being able to take unmonetized assets, big ideas, and turn it into something magical. And where are you maybe leaving $1 million or $100 million on the table? And what kind of creative collaborations can get you there? This is all about creating money that doesn't exist. But as usual, we go into some really interesting side pockets that Dan always takes us down. And Dan, why don't you talk a little bit about what people can expect in this episode?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that for some reason, and I think it's technological, and I think it's world crises, and I think it's just a new period of what's taking place in our society, in North America and the advanced world. But there's the possibility of putting together new kinds of entrepreneurial projects, which have a number of very interesting qualities. One is that money isn't really the central issue of it. Money is necessary, it's a means and everything else, but it's the ability of taking your capability and combining it with someone else's capability. You both have, proven track records. You're not doing it because you need the money. You're already independent. And the way you're making money now isn't on the table. You're not really. What you're doing is you're agreeing on creating a new kind of value in the marketplace, and you're in agreement with it. You're in agreement. You're both excited about creating value for a particular type of customer or client. And the thing about it is that it requires you to combine each of your capabilities in a third thing that neither of you could create by yourself. So I've just given, the last two steps, and what I see has to be agreed upon before you can even start.
Yeah, and I think to wrap this up in this intro, you talk about going from first stage purpose to your next level, where something that is even bigger beyond transformations and experiences are novelty. And that's what this episode's all about. So I guarantee you're going to enjoy this. So stick around and enjoy, whether you're listening or watching. All right, Dan, we're talking today about creating money that doesn't exist. And I want you to set this up because we started with a free zone opportunity, which is the ultimate creating money that doesn't exist collaboration possibility. Why don't you just set up what we were talking about, and we're going to dive into how to make this happen with creative collaborations.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd like to say is that I think if you have the right mindset, Mike, this is getting easier because of the great technological capabilities for making more or less instant contacts and talking to the right people about the right opportunities very, very quickly. And I'm just referring, of course, to the way the Zoom world has gone over the last year and a half. So my sense is that if you have two people who are right for each other, they're basically 3 clicks apart. That's I still have to do 3 clicks to get on a Zoom. And so I said that's the travel time now for, engaging in great discussion about a new opportunity. So I just like to put that I think 25 years ago, what I'm talking about would have been a lot harder.
That's totally true. I think in the past, to be able to press the flesh meant, I know people would literally not want to do a meeting unless they were in person, and that's absolutely changed. But let's talk about the core purpose of this, which is you can collaborate easier, but also every business these days, at least in my experience, is sitting on unmonetized assets that are generally hidden. And I'll start with a couple examples that pop into mind, and I know you'll have a couple stories as well. There is an individual that I met at an event who has raised over $40 billion in the financial industry. And I can mention his name because he's in our marketing. His name's Guy Costin. His company is Dakota. And we were talking one day, and really the way the conversation even started up, he wanted to do something in his business. And I told him it was a horrible idea. He'd probably burn $500,000 and probably millions of dollars in opportunity. And that caught his attention. And I said, but I do have an idea that I think you're leaving a tremendous amount of money on the table. And in his case, because he's raised tons of money in this industry, he's got some proprietary know-how. He knows how to sell financial services to allocators or financial instruments. And I said, why don't you turn that into a training program and sell the training program to all the customers you can't have? Some people might call this an eating your own young methodology, where you're selling your IP, your know-how. But he said, let's talk about it. And we wound up creating a program and a product and a sales system. And now it's, you can touch 3,500 or more customers instead of the under 10 he currently could, because there's a scaling challenge in the industry. And that's just one, which is just taking IP. But I think what's magical and what has happened inside the free zone over and over and over again I am consistently seeing people getting together just with the simple mindset shift and collaborating to create great opportunity. So I've got more case studies to share, but comment, please.
Yeah, well, I think, this is very true. And I think there's a mood shift, too. I mean, I talked about a technological shift, but And it's really interesting because I think the two go together. I think that when you suddenly are presented with a new technological capability, you're able to think new thoughts that you couldn't have thought before, because the absence of the technology meant that before it was harder. It took a lot longer. There was a lot of friction. There was a lot of complexity to it. And if it's a good technology, the technology will, just make things. It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut for the right people with the right mindset. And so I think what you're talking there is that both of you, first of all, you were available to each other right away just to have a personal conversation. And that's a great thing. And I know, Mike, that you kind of specialize in putting special groups together, special, events together, special trips together. So unpredictably good things can happen. But my sense is that I've noticed, in addition to great breakthroughs for us as a company, that's come because we now have a whole virtual global program, which wasn't really conceivable before the COVID. I'm just noticing a real shift in how we're thinking about our future here in the company. But what I'm noticing in the workshops, because I interact with 500 really successful entrepreneurs every 90 days, and some of them I interact with, multiple times, as many as 5 or 6 times during a quarter. I'm just noticing a mood shift that people are saying, all sorts of things are possible these days that I never thought about. So that's my response to, the situation that you talked about.
Okay, so I took a couple notes while you were talking there. One is this mood shift, which I hadn't even contemplated that. I really want to go a little bit further down that, and also the fact that when I look at what creates an environment for creating money that doesn't exist, you said something really smart, which is just being able to have a conversation. I think having an unstructured conversation is super important. You also have to have the right territory or field in place, meaning like what I look for is, first of all, a business owner, ideally that has a certain amount of charisma and clearly a great communicator. That is very, very important. I'm looking for some sort of a moat, some proprietary IP, like you have that all the time in spades. someone who is constantly in front of their clients. And you just said that I'm in front of 500 people all the time. And that's part of the beauty of strategic coach. You're constantly inventing new ideas. You get to test out a thinking idea. You ask questions where you don't know the answer. So that causes an environment of wonder to occur. And then,
well, I would say the situation that you talked about, another factor was true, is that you both had prestige in each other's eyes. In other words, that, it wasn't, you weren't off the street knocking on the door of, a major player, that there was prestige perceived on both sides, and, Mike, we've gone through your pioneering days in the digital world, and that goes back, it goes back 35 years. So, and you're an innovator, someone who has broken new ground for marketing in the digital world. So there's, in the other person's eyes, there's prestige there. And I think prestige is very important. And prestige isn't the same as status. Prestige is that other people talk about you positively. That's really what a lot of other people talk about you positively. And it's not status, that you were a big winner in the past and you got a lot of money and you belong to the right clubs and your house is in the right suburb and your kids go to the right school. It's not that. It's performance prestige. It's, originality prestige. And I think that probably both of you had that in each other's eyes.
Damn, that is so profound. I've never even thought about the distinction before, but holy cow.
Well, can I tell you the difference between status in most societies? That status often is created and reinforced with dominance. There's a dominance. The person has dominance, and prestige is earned over quite a long period of time through performance. And the difference is how people respond to someone with dominance. They're afraid of them.
Yeah.
And with prestige, they want to be near them to listen. So it's an opposite reaction on the part of people. It's Godfather. Status is Godfather land. You
might wake up with a horse in your bed, or horse head in your bed, right?
Yeah, there's a perceived threat if you in any way anger the person. There's a perceived threat, and there's it could be government dominance. It could be you're just in a position that you can make life's miserable, and you let it be known that would happen. What I find with prestige people, they're just interested in their next exciting thing, and they've got a track record of having done very successful things. And you want to be around people like that because they stimulate your own imagination.
Yeah, there's an implied long game also that's inherent to that. So that's really profound psychology, Dan. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of the mechanics. I'll tell you a few things that I look for. And you said something earlier today about something that doesn't work for you, because I think it's just as important, which is when you have people come up and they're like, hey, Dan, I've got this great idea. You're going to pay me to create a new product that you're going to market to your clients so I can get customers. And you get, there's always jackals and hyenas running around and lamprey eels on the sharks, right?
Well, the other thing is that I'm going to talk about a couple of the collaboration examples to go along with your couple. And for someone who's not a collaborator, they're not understanding what I'm doing. They're perceiving, hey, Dan's this great guy. He'll help you build a business, and then he'll advertise your business, and then you can get his clients, and you can make a lot of money off Dan's clients. And I said, well, it might look like it looks that way from the outside, not because of what I'm doing, but because of who you are.
Yeah. Oh, so true. Well, the other thing that you said earlier that was very, very powerful is there's two things to screw things up, which is upfront money and lawyers that stop everything.
Yeah, if the first meeting is about how much money you're going to make up front and you need lawyers there and you need a lawyer, both sides need a lawyer, I can guarantee you it's not a collaboration. It's not something brand new, and it's not a collaboration. It's not something positively good brand new. What I mean by that, it may be new, it may be a new scheme or a new twist, but it's got to be right from the day one. You have to have lawyers there to protect you from the fact that you don't actually trust the other person.
Right. So let's talk about the positive moving future here, which is what works. So here's a few things that I look for. And I was so inspired today that I'm starting to work on like a full survey. I want to create the perfect collaboration survey, which is how to identify where there's money on the table. And if your immediate reaction is resistance, it's because you don't have the right who to make that happen. That's where a perfect collaboration exists. And what I look for, I think one of them is an unrealized asset that can be delivered in a form different than, or a different channel or in a different format. So for example, I can take someone's process or system that they currently is a service and say, how can I productize this? How can I turn it into a training program or a certification program? There's a make money opportunity in there. In other words, a way to share it. And then you could also appify it and find some way to automate it or scale it without requiring humans. Those are some of the obvious ones that I look for right away. And again, the key elements that make it work is I need to have a history of success, meaning I need to know that this person has been selling transformations, not transactions, that I've got a minimum of 3, but ideally 10 awesome transformational stories, because the product has to be sold with the stories and the transformations. The next one, there has to be a unique system that hopefully is the result of years of research and knowledge. One small example I can give you that hooked me a while ago. It's an individual person platform versus a business. But it was this guy I met on a trip named Justin Donald, and I've talked about him in the past. He had been an investor with a great lifestyle. And it wasn't obvious at the time, but we ended up branding him the lifestyle investor, packaging his know-how, which he had read hundreds of books, attended dozens, if not hundreds of events, and hybridized lots and lots of investment strategies and boiled them all down into something that helped his wife leave her teaching job, him leave his job, and then accumulate tens of millions in wealth. Mm-hmm. And so we packaged that into a book, into a system, into a product, and now he's got a mastermind and he's able to do it in a compliant fashion, which is also challenging. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's personal know-how and knowledge, which a personal brand can have a lot of value, versus a business as well, that you train your business and all the people in it to think a certain way, deliver a certain way, market a certain way. And the more success you develop, I believe a value gap gets created where your own perception of your self-worth isn't as high as the outside world's or that IP that's been accumulated over time. Yeah. So that was a big dump of stuff.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, one good thinking system that one of our free zoners, Dean Jackson, created over the last 2 years. It's called VCR, and it's vision, um, vision, capabilities, and reach. Okay. So he said that what's really helpful before you go about the business of looking for collaborations, you kind of document what your vision is of your future. Okay. And the reason is that people are interested in other people's visions. Okay. And I think if you're an entrepreneur, the entrepreneurs kind of have to self-propel themselves, self-motivate themselves and self-propel themselves. And, they have a vision. But one of the things that is useful for personal confidence is that you can talk to other people about their visions, and you can probably clarify your vision by hearing someone else's vision or see how they're doing it differently than you are. And it gives you, but the other thing is you're putting in their mind someone that if they come across someone who has things that would really help your vision, they can be useful to you, and we're useful to each other. I mean, entrepreneurs of goodwill like actually helping other people out more or less voluntarily, just to as a gift. I just want to put you two together, because it seems to me that the two of you together can do that. So that's the vision, and you have a vision of what you could do. And capabilities, what are all the capabilities you have? And as you said, Mike, you're only maximizing certain capabilities at the best of times in your business, and you have other capabilities which are minor players, but that doesn't mean they're not great capabilities in another situation. It's just in your situation, it's not a big deal. And you haven't done it, but you should inventory them. And then the other thing is reach, and that's the great world that we live in right now, is that suddenly, things that used to be global can be regional, things that used to be local can be regional, things regional, national, and national, global. And it's happened very suddenly, certainly in the last 2 years. So I think to a certain extent, you got to have a kit. You got to have a collaboration kit. And it's what, kind of depersonalize, taking your vision and say, I got a vision. Yep, I got a vision. I've got a lot of capabilities, and there's all sorts of reach that's possible through me. My 500 clients that I talk to is a very attractive network to other people with ideas. It's very attractive. And then we have, and that's a fifth of the total client base, because we have other coaches and we have other entrepreneurial clients. But the thing that I want to say here, why I like Dean's thing is that you can do it with anything, anybody, anybody who's been successful in some line of work, or they've got good experience in a thing, has a lot of vision, has a lot of capabilities, and a lot of reach that they would ordinarily not even think about as assets. But if they can just document them and show them to someone else like yourself may just look at it. When you were talking to, in the example you were talking to, you just said you've got capabilities, and that are they're being underused. You haven't used them, and you probably did some configuration of a new kind of vision for what he could do, and then you probably showed him the reach that he could have that he didn't realize that he had reach.
Yes. And when I take what you said earlier, this is why it's so powerful, this notion of prestige versus status, but also credibility, which is part of the reach. So I'm going to deconstruct this based on the VCR model.
Yeah.
So the vision is, hey, business owner, I know you're leaving. You're very successful. You're one of the tops in your business. And it's obvious to me when I look at your website and the stories that there's what I look for is a lack of story or personalization or authenticity on a website. That tells me that they're underselling and that there isn't enough storytelling going on. It's kind of a nuanced dead giveaway. And I also look for someone like when I meet a founder and owner or people in the organization, and there aren't what I call smiley, happy people, bunnies, kitties, babies on their website. In other words, I don't feel like there's enough emotion there. I know they're underselling. So that's like a first dead giveaway. And then if they've been in business for a chunk of time, ideally like 10 years. So I know they've got something magic. And the vision then is you've got some magic capabilities of your own. And there's a way for you to generate continuity or subscription income so your whole staff and team isn't constantly delivering. That's attractive to anyone. A business could be at 20 million, but with the right kind of marketing, right kind of product, they could dramatically increase their revenue. I've seen some instances where a $20 million company can become a $100 million company, which makes them much more attractive. That again goes into the vision package. Yeah. So the capabilities are you and I together can take your know-how, your wisdom, your IP, create a product. And the reach comes down to, and this is the distinction with what you were talking about earlier, credibility. If you've got credibility and prestige in the marketplace and you apply it with the right story, which in this case, the vision, going back to delivery, now we live in a world where you can deliver any content anywhere in the world. You can certify people. We don't care about moving flesh any longer. It's irrelevant. It's there's a formula to assembling all that. But I think the thing that you can't underestimate is if I have transformational stories, meaning I've got credibility and proof, and I have reach, and you have prestige, that means telling the stories to people who raise their hand and say yes happens considerably faster. And, inside of that, you can take an idea and execute it and get paid to make it, which is the other most important thing. Like what you do every day or every coaching session is, hey, I have a new idea. Let's try it out. Here's a thinking exercise. You've got people who give you feedback and you can refine it. What we used to do, and I still do it, frankly, is I'll say, hey, I have an idea. I'd like to invite you to come to a webinar or some sort of an event. What if you could have this and this? And then at the end of sharing and just openly giving away the content, say, if I could do this with you, would you be interested? And you get buyers and you make it for them and effectively have paid check writer beta testers. Yeah. And that to me is the very best way to roll out any product and then gather more social proof that your stuff works. Creates a momentum.
I mean, having listened to how you put together, new focusing packages for a lot of people. I want to observe something that I think that when you catch people, you catch them at a particular moment. And I think that all entrepreneurs, you start your, and I only deal with entrepreneurs, so I'm sure it applies to people in other fields, but I've just got thousands of stories when it comes to entrepreneurs that all entrepreneurs have purpose to start their career as an entrepreneur because it takes a fair amount of personal belief. It takes a certain amount of certainly a certain amount of courage. But but my sense is they have what I would call a first stage purpose. And the first stage purpose is actually freedom from a lot of stuff that they don't like, and it might be relative poverty, poverty or scarcity as a child, and they want to get free from the conditions of scarcity, or it may be that they've got sort of a unique take on something. But in their childhood and teenagers, it's not really developed, but they're just considered odd and, they don't have friends and nobody can see into their soul and see, the great value that they're going to create in their life. But the first thing is a getting away purpose, that they're and they put numbers on it. If I make this kind of income, if I have this kind of bank account, and it's got a lot of what I would say external measurements. How they look, and who they hang out with, and the clubs they belong to, whatever it is. And oftentimes that's the only purpose that the entrepreneur is ever going to have in his or her career. In other words, they make it may end up them being millionaires and doing it, but somehow they never get beyond that first purpose. And I'm not against that first purpose. I had enough of it myself, when I started. So, if I'm disrespecting other people, then I have to disrespect myself for how I got things started. To be fair, I mean,
right.
But I think that what you do is you catch them not too long after, or very close to when they're getting the end of that usefulness of that stage one purpose. And stage two purpose is the freedom to be something. Okay. And they couldn't even think about it unless they had their initial success. If they hadn't achieved their first purpose, they wouldn't be able to even think about their second purpose. And I think the thing is that you have a thinking process, and you have enough. You have your own. You'll have your own scar tissue as an entrepreneur of having gone through different stages of growth, that you're able to get them now to kind of let go of that. The skills that get you out of Egypt aren't the ones that get you into the promised land.
Yeah, right.
And so the big thing is that I think you catch them, and then you allow them to have a new purpose. Okay. And so you have prestige, but you have the ability to give them a new purpose. And, if you've become really successful, and you're still, from the outside standpoint, you still look young enough, you still look energetic, and you don't have any purpose, and you're looking ahead 5 to 10 years, and you're just going to make money the same way as you made money before, and it's never going to give you a purpose. That's a really bad corner to get into.
Yeah. That's, I think you nailed it here, Dan. Again, through a different lens I haven't looked at before, which is timing is everything. Mm-hmm. And they, folks that are moving around. Here's the transition that
you may share their names or not, but I know the two people, that it kind of put together because you created the right setting for them to actually get together. But quite frankly, I've known both of them, and the trajectory that both of them were on, it was going to be a lot bigger numbers, but it was going to be more or less the same game.
Yeah, and they won't mind me sharing this because we recorded it. I'll give you the setup. And we'll talk more about that in another episode as well. But it was Howard Getson and John Bowen, and we did a trip. And my goal was I wanted to put together really smart, interesting business owners and entrepreneurs who are abundance minded and clearly had collaboration in mind. Yeah. Another person who came to that event was Charlie Epstein. And I had a bunch of people who are not in Coach who were there. And the first thing I asked a question when we began, I said, how can we make this experience an 11 on a scale 1 to 10 for you? What would you like to walk away with? And different people had different things they wanted to do. And Charlie said something really interesting. He says, I would be really inspired if we found a way for all of us here, and there were about 10 people on the trip, to find a way to collaborate and create something together that would be really unique and exciting for all of us. And I thought, wow, that's a big vision, to put people together inside of 4 days and do something like that. And and there were some magical things. There were some deep meaningful relationships that got created. But specifically with Howard and John, Howard went there and he presented an idea about how things are created and invented. John showed off a new technology he's put together for doing VR meetings. Well, these guys ended up connecting in a strangely interesting way they hadn't before. They've known each other for 6 years, always talked about doing something. But by the time the trip was done, they had discovered that they felt that they had created an opportunity that would generate $100 million to $250 million in opportunity revenue and assets under management. And interestingly, a week went by and I was talking to Howard and he says, well, actually it doubled now. We think it's a $500 million opportunity. And I think timing and location are really necessary for great collaborations to occur. And sometimes you just got to get out of your traditional office, your traditional home, get on some different ground. And yeah, it can happen virtually, but there is something magical about that. And the people, as you said, have to be in a cycle of their life where they've gotten past a certain Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They've reached that comfort point and they're looking for, here again, are the consistents. They're looking for continuity income, a way to build wealth that has huge multiples, taking processes that they've built and created over time and proven, and they want it to exist without them being there. And I don't think it's always a legacy play, but they're looking for scale and freedom on a different level that they hadn't imagined was possible before.
Yeah, well, in about 3 weeks, Babs and I are going on one of Peter Diamandis's, his longevity, life extension, age reversal trips. And last year it was in your area. It was the Bay Area in San Diego, where there's a lot of great
right on
going on. And this time it's Boston and New York. And so we're going, it's 5 days, 3 in Boston and 2 in New York. And everybody's coming to us so that we're going to have, great, kind of hotel facilities. And then people are going to come to it. And, over the years, I believe that all the technological breakthroughs, scientific breakthroughs, medical breakthroughs are very crucial for achieving longer age. And, they're coming fast and furious right now because it's almost the one goal that almost every human being has. If you got a reason for living longer, you want to live longer, and it's going to take some help. But I've often thought that actually what predisposes you to be even interested in the medicine and the technology is actually that you either have or you're not suffering. You either have an abundance of something or you're not suffering from a scarcity. And I'll approach it from the scarcity standpoint. All their friends have died. All the meaningful relationships
right, yes,
are dying, and you don't have any close relationships. And you don't have any shared memories with people that you're meeting. The other thing is that you're running out of money. You had money to get independently to a certain age, and now you're running out of it. Okay. Number 3 is you don't have a purpose. I mean, that, 70 years, 70 or 75 years was enough time for you to achieve all your purposes, and there just isn't any other purpose on it. But there was a couple more that I thought about, and one of them relates directly to why I think John and Howard were so excited about what they were able to put together as a result of the environment you created, and it's novelty. It's novelty, and my feeling is that one of the things that keeps us most alive is that there's going to be new, exciting things that are superior to anything you've already achieved in your life. You've seen amazing breakthroughs and discoveries, but you have this feeling that what lies ahead is even. And I think that is huge for predisposing someone to want 10 more years, 20 more years, And and the other thing, and this is an odd one, but you've run out of things to be courageous about.
Wow.
In other words,
Wow.
there isn't anything risky anymore. I mean, dying is, I mean, but that's you've you've programmed that in for a long time. But my sense is, think if you have abundance of friends, abundance of money, abundance of purpose, and you have even a greater abundance of novelty, and it's going to require courage.
Wow. Hadn't
I was
thought of that.
looking at
Yeah.
really wealthy people who are billionaires, and I just observe them from a distance. I don't actually. I've met one of them in my life, but I don't. It's not really part of billionaires. Really, isn't part of my company. And I said, the biggest problem with you is you can't fail at anything because you can write any size check to correct what happened.
Yes. Wow. And I will add, so I want to just reflect on what you said because it was very profound, Dan. And then I'm going to add one billionaire comment to this because, well, first of all, novelty, what I've sold this experience, for example, on in the past is on transformations and experiences.
Yeah.
And over again, people say, I'll pay for an experience. I won't pay, they'll talk about all the things they won't pay for, which I have high value to someone who hasn't achieved a certain level of success. But the notion of novelty and inside of that feeling as though they can be a multiplier, it's looking forward to something unique, which is where you just talked about nothing risky anymore. And I won't say who invited me because I don't have permission for this, but I just came back from a big economic summit out west with someone and they were all very affluent, many, many billionaires in the room. There were about 150 people. And I don't know how many were billionaires, but a lot of them. I remember sitting next to an 86-year-old, and one of the key topics was longevity. And there was someone there who has some breakthrough technology that the military is using right now that is multiplying our mitochondria dramatically. And so it's this oral thing that causes some stuff to happen. It's in trials right now. It'll be released very shortly. And there were a couple elderly gentlemen there, one of which had been, he had stage 4 melanoma, which is very, very deadly. And he's been alive because of it. But he was in his 90s. And then this 86-year-old, he was like, this is what's most important to me. And the combination of novelty multipliers and all what they all had in common, the theme of the older billionaires were, I want more. And very much, I want to be able to do more stuff, things that I hadn't thought about. And they're very excited about the future. So how that gets packaged moving forward.
Well, I think, we've really laid the groundwork for looking at, for some examples here. But, I'm noticing, and, the one of the, longstanding and the considered the most significant thinking tools that we have in Strategic Coach is the lifetime extender.
Right.
Okay. And, where you recognize that probably the number that you've had floating around your head forever when you thought you were going to die was just something you picked up from other people or family history or, actuarial tables or whatever it is. But the question is, if you could have the number that you really want for the length of your lifetime, what would it be? And, and it's amazing because a lot of people realize, well, first of all, can you do that? I mean, can you just give yourself a different number? And I said, well, look at it the other way. If it's not intentional on your part, do you think it will happen?
Yeah.
Mine is quite, it's quite striking because I just doubled the normal lifetime. I went from 78 to 156, and it elicits all sorts of responses. It's actually very disturbing to some people, that you want to do that for whatever reasons they have for that. But people say, well, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. And I said, well, if you think that through a little bit more deeply, probably not, maybe other people are disappointed, but you're gone,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, you won't know the difference. But the second thing is, I think the two crazy Dan numbers, it's the $15 trillion ecosystem or economy that is outside of a country. That is a brain shocking compartment that most people have never done on them. Plus the 156-year lifespan. What it does, knowing you as long as I have. Go ahead.
It's not that I'm preoccupied with that, but it makes you ask the question: if you were even to begin on the trip, towards 156, and actually put yourself in a condition where it might be possible. What habits would you have to change today? And that's the real impact of the long goal is what do you change right now? And I'm incredibly better physical shape and energy. And I set this goal 34 years ago. And by any indicator, and I've got, tests that go back there, I'm in better shape today. I'm stronger, and I have fewer things that are, possibly dangerous inside me right now than I did that. And I think the reason is because whatever I want to be 100 years, 50 years from now or 60 years, you got to be that way today. You got to actually, and so my sense is that I want to come back to and, pull this together. That what I think you're a master of, Mike, is actually taking people who have a lot of capabilities, who have a lot of resources that don't have any purpose. And they can't tell their story because your story is, your ability to get people to tell stories is actually getting them to explain their new purpose in the future.
Wow.
And this is this is a chosen purpose. This isn't a rebellious purpose or a getaway purpose. It's not an escape purpose. It's actually a creativity purpose. It's now that I've done all these other things and I've handled this and everything. Now I get to create what I really want. And I think you have developed a whole process for people to do this in a way that they can't possibly do themselves.
Well, it looks like I've got to rewrite all my marketing material after today.
No. I think basically you just have to take what you already developed as a service, and you just have to take that and put it in the framework of two people with great stories telling a new story, that combines in the future. So I think you've done 80% of the work. You just have to add there's a story here, but there's a purpose, and there's two purposes, and they want to create something in the future that neither of them can do on their own. John Bowen's got a story, and John was, when he joined the 10X program, he was getting close to packing it in.
Right.
And I've known Howard for 23 years, and he was obsessive about his artificial intelligence hedge fund. Well, he's got the hedge fund, and it's working and it's doing what he wanted and everything like that. But it's not really Howard's purpose. That's just a capability he developed for himself so he can achieve larger purposes. And John's got the greatest coaching company in the world for advisors who are affluent, who are advisors to affluent people. Okay. But, he could grow it a lot bigger, but it wouldn't be too much there wouldn't be more novelty to it. And what you've just introduced to both of them is the possible to do something really novel.
Yeah, no. And I think it'll be fun. And relatively effortless. For John, I know for him, he's got an enormous amount of outside. His wife is very clear. I don't want you taking on more things that create a whole bunch more work. I want you now, right? And he's still young enough.
You got to be able to do it in the building next to the pool.
Yeah, right. Which he's doing the best he can at managing that. But yeah, I mean, that's
world headquarters next to his pool.
Right on.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? I mean, just wrapping up the ground we've covered this.
It's very profound, Dan. I took a lot of notes in this episode, and I was reflecting back at all the people that I've been working with over the past 3 years, and you know this about me is I had my dark night when I decided I didn't want to do stuff. I went through my own transition, and I started seeing this in so many entrepreneurs who had hit their brass ring, and they're like, what else? And one of those came from, it was Charlie Epstein, and we created his one-man show, Yield to Dreams, which now has a documentary that's very good. He's rolling this thing out. And I told him, you are a rich, bored financial advisor who deep inside you're a frustrated comedian, actor, entertainer. And that's what you should be doing all the time. And, I gave him an offer, which was, let's put together a writing team and create this show. And he's like, I'm in, which was about the strangest project I've probably done in many years. And then I thought, how the hell am I ever going to find more Charlies? I mean, that's about as weird as it gets. But a lot of these, they don't have to be crazy creative, but they are unique extensions of what I always say. If you got to spend 99% of your time in your superpower, your unique ability, what would it be? Yeah. And figuring out a way to do that in a way that makes some money, even though it's not about the money, but they can't you can't cut off your nose to spite your face. You still got a business to run. You got employees who are dependent on you. And a lot of folks are just terrified of what would happen if, and that is a courage multiplier. Yeah. And finding that right thing. So the bottom line is I have a lot of thinking to do, but this was a profoundly effective conversation that I did not expect today, Dan. So thanks. You gave, like, just from our first session, I got up at 5 a.m. today to do Free Zone. And I mean, there's more gold came out of today than I've had in months.
The guy from Mumbai, India could be in it, because. Yeah,
Ninad was there.
Yeah.
Who's popping up from the crazy COVID that's taken over his country. Yeah. So right on.
Well, anyway, we can develop this because I think that I've been, really developing this idea as a main focus, and it'll be my only focus within about a year and a half. And that is, what's the actual structure? I mean, regardless of what you're putting together, what's the actual structure of this? And I've actually, I don't know what the first steps are, but I know what the last two steps are. So I'm kind of doing it backwards. And
right.
And so we can talk about that when we start our next episode.
Yeah, let's do it. I can't wait. So, well, let's wrap this up. As usual, what Dan and I would love you to do is rate, review, share this with someone you might know. And by the way, if you'd like a transcript of this and the other episodes, you can pull out your mobile phone and text CA to 858-434-5316 or just visit capabilityamplifier.com. And let us know what you think about this episode. And if you're motivated to figure out some of these methods, as I had mentioned in the beginning, I'm going to build a survey that revolves around identifying where you've got assets that aren't monetized, but more importantly, new ways to express yourself. Because we really are onto something here, Dan. It's creating... not just creating money that doesn't exist, but our next episode we're going to do is all about creating purpose for other people and giving great who's great purposes, which I'm really looking forward to.
Great.
Anything else? Let's let him go.
I'm inspired. I'm ready to go.
I like being inspired with you, Dan. So another great episode. Thank you for everyone for watching and listening.